Welcome everyone to the Mastermind Book Club, and tonight we present the Autobiography of Benjamin Franklin. You can zoom into the screen if you need to see the letters or any of the writings that I've gathered up. There's so much that can be talked about this book. I know reading it, I found it a little bit boring until the first part of it, and then as I got to the second and third part, then it's like, wow, this book is really amazing. Now, why is it boring? Because the first part of this book creates a historical, chronological history of Benjamin Franklin's family, and it's dedicated to his son. So he's like leaving this to his son, who is not actually his son, but his son is adopted. Now, I don't remember the exact whole story, but I know that his son was adopted, and I know that he loved him dearly, and that wherever he was involved, he wanted to get his son involved. So Ben Franklin, that's where he starts out. And here we go. So the autobiography of Ben Franklin is one of the most famous works of American literature. It's also the first autobiography to achieve widespread popularity and is a classic of the genre. It's about one of America's founding fathers, a man singular in his confluence of intellect, wit, integrity, ingenuity, perspicacity, and self-awareness. The work is not only an autobiography, but also a historical document of a rough time in our history, a self-help manual that encapsulates the idea of self-made man. If you could please mute your volume, that would be great. There we go, got it. So sorry about that. So Ben Franklin is self-made. Why do I say that? Because at the age of 12 is when he started working at his brother's printing firm, and he only went to school until that same year, 12 years. Did he have a college degree? No. Was there an established school system? Not completely. I don't think there was at that time, because the main school systems were in Europe and places like that. Now, Ben Franklin, at the age of 12, might not have seemed very smart, but he was a scholar. Like Leo LeMay states, Franklin gave us the definitive formation of the American dream. What was the American dream at that time that can still be applied? Well, first of all, he did his autobiography. In the first part, he talks about his history, which I thought was a bit boring. I don't really want to go over that. So part one, by the summer of 1782, both documents have been seen by his friend Abel James, who wrote to Franklin urging him to resume the project. In other words, Ben Franklin thought he was finished until his friend suggested that he should continue writing about his accomplishments in life. Right? At the age of 12, Ben Franklin read Thomas Tryon's book. This is not in my notes. I don't think it's in my notes. Thomas Tryon. I tried to purchase this book. This book is going for, in places, $500 to $800. Man, I didn't know books could go that much, and I'm trying to get a copy, even if it's a cheap copy, but I want a copy of this book. Why is this book important? Because it talks about the early writings of eating in a vegetarian lifestyle. And at the age of 12 or 16, somewhere in that age, Ben Franklin started eating that lifestyle. Now, I didn't start at 12. and I don't know if any of you have. I was vegan for some time, and then realized that after a few years, about 5 or 6 years into being vegan, that it was okay to have little bit of meat. Psychologically, it was not that easy to accept going back to meat, but as I had some meat, I felt much better. And since there is no law that prohibits you from having meat, there is no religious law, there is no law in this country. I think maybe in India, maybe there's a law, but it doesn't exist here. So I will have my meat from occasion to occasion, and I usually try and have it organic if I can. It's just so much better for you. So it's quite an amazement that Ben Franklin, that was the first accomplishment that he had. He was vegetarian for most of his life, I believe, if not all of his life, although I wasn't there to attest, I can't question it. Franklin starts writing his autobiography in 1771. Geez, that's 200 years before I was born back then. So that's amazing. Addressing it to his dear son and beginning with the family history. Now, the family history is about how Ben Franklin, where he came from, and because they came from, I believe it was from London. I mean, I can go over some of this. It'll say here. But one of the amazing things is that Ben Franklin wanted to write in his brother's newspaper, and his brother wouldn't allow him. So Ben Franklin, decided to run under a fake penmanship name. Now, his writings were really good. They were so good that people were anxious to read that section of the paper, which was, I believe, on wit and wisdom. I believe it's what it was. But it was a little bit about everything. So can you imagine not having graduated high school, not having gone to college, and all of a sudden being able to go into this writing spree? How could he have accomplished this? One simple way, because he had a passion for reading, and most people do not have a passion for reading. Why is that? Why is it? Because we haven't taken the time to fulfill that passion. I stopped reading for a little while, and it bothered me. I felt stressed that I wasn't reading, and I picked it back up right away. How did I do that? I had to sacrifice some time and bring it back in. But it was easy time because I was dedicating an hour to exercise. So I just determined that all I need is 30 minutes of exercise, and sometimes it's only 20 minutes of exercise. So that's how you have to make this work for you. And how did Ben Franklin do it? I'm going to leave that for later, because that's a powerful, powerful tool that I hope that you guys all use. Now, the governor of the province of Pennsylvania, Sir William Keith, was impressed by Franklin and offers to help convince Franklin's father that he ought to get his own shop for printing because of his writing. However, Josiah thinks, that's his brother, Franklin is too young, and tells him he must spend time working hard at the trade before he will assist. Franklin agrees and hopes this will happen in the future. In the meantime, he has a falling out with Collins, who is often drunk. Franklin worries about paying back the money. His father's friend Vernon, who had given it to Franklin for safekeeping, unbeknownst to Vernon, Franklin had loaned to Collins. So Franklin had money that was borrowed, and he lent it to somebody else, and they were worried that they'd get it back. So the business grows. Franklin meets a woman by the name of Meredith, where Franklin was working in Pennsylvania. They acquire a newspaper because Meredith's father passes away. Project number one, he looks to his first public project, a subscription library. This is where the library started in the U.S. And it was 13 colonies back then when Benjamin Franklin started. He only read and spent no time in taverns or gambling. Well, what can we do? If we spend times at bars and and gatherings, what can we do? But Ben Franklin sacrificed all of that. Franklin then explicates the plan he conceived for moral perfection. So this is something that I have tried to live to, and that I will start doing it again because I fell off the bandwagon. So Ben Franklin measured himself on these 13 virtues. Now, how do he do it? He picked one once a week. So, for example, temperance. Temperance means, I don't want to go into all of these, but I'm going to do it quickly. Temperance, not being greedy, not being a glutton. So eating enough, but not too much that you would get sick. That's one. Silence, not speaking too much. Practicing silence as in reference to listening, as in reference to not commenting too much on what you see and what you hear or what you observe. Order, doing the first thing of the day, and so on. Resolution, to resolve, to perform whatever it is you set out to do during the day and do it. Frugality, waste no time on anything. Be fruitful. Industry, I'm going by memory, by the way. There's no written, I don't have a written format. I know some of these. Industry, working on whatever business that you have and performing your duties diligently. Sincerity. Now, being sincere is very important, but you can be sincerely right as well as you can be sincerely wrong. So that's one of the catches of these virtues. I don't know if you found that funny, but I hope I got at least a serious laugh. For many of you, I've muted. I'm going to unmute you because I like to have some of your comments on there from the peanut gallery. Dennis, welcome, Dennis. Justice, do no harm. Do no harm to anyone. That is a practice that we all can merit from. Moderation. So moderation and temperance are very similar. So moderation is, going from memory, I'm going to have this at the end as well, is doing things not in an exaggerated way, but just enough that you are persistent and are not over concentrating on doing one task and leaving everything else out. Cleanliness, obviously you know what that is. Tranquility, peace, chastity. Well, chastity to the extent of not having multiple partners, because Ben Franklin had many partners, but I don't think
in the chat, David.
I don't. Sorry, say that again.
I listed them out in the chat.
You did. Oh, and thank you. I can't. Let me see. I can chat. I have it listed on the screen. I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah, I put the explanations to it also.
So chastity. Thank you, Dennis. Chastity. Ben Franklin had many women, according to stories. However, he had them supposedly one at a time. So I don't know if that applies to people who might not like that, but hey, that's what happens. And by the way, Ben Franklin himself came from a second marriage. He was the son of his father's second wife. So just so you're aware, so don't you think that only in these times that's happening. That happened back then as well. Humility, be like Jesus or Socrates, or Socrates. It's one of the two. Now, I don't know too much about Socrates' life, although when I was in college, I read about him, and still to this date, I have no idea, except that Socrates was killed for the truth. So maybe that's what he meant. So the task is not easy, but he is pleased with his efforts. Now, this is, if you're interested in any of this, you can create your own words. There are like 300 or 400 words you can choose from. So some of these can be changed, some of these can be taken away. So, it's just a way of measuring yourself. There are other ways to measure yourself. So this is not the only way. And I'm going to talk about that at the end. So a few of Franklin's major works that he achieved success during the time. I think I wrote these out. Here they are. Fire department. He created the first fire department. The hospital, the library, an academy, cleaning and paving the roads, getting the Quaker Assembly to establish a militia called the Junta. Junta. Junta is the joint or the board in English. Now, Franklin's public persona also begins to grow with his first public position being the clerk of the General Assembly in Pennsylvania. He works on many scientific experiments, earning accolades and honors. Now, here we go. So in 1754, the British go to war against France, and Franklin is picked to be one of the generals in the armies. He had no experience whatsoever, but he was smart and he was keen, and he succeeded as a general. So I don't know too much more about those details. He works with the governor and is eventually sent along with his son to London as a representative of the assembly. There he hears from Lord Granville, who dislikes that the colonists are trying to get away from paying taxes to the motherland, to London. So you can imagine that. This is where Franklin's work ends, and it is unfinished. That was at that time. And then Ben Franklin, who narrates his life story in this work, is a quintessential self-made man. This is all repeated, right? Hold on. Just want to go over the most important details. Look at that, blank pages. Here we go. So I don't know if you'll be able to see this. If you can, you can go to the chat. This is one of the main things that Ben Franklin's known for. You can zoom into this. Number one, every day, every morning, Benjamin Franklin asks himself, what good shall I do this day? What good shall I do this day? Wow. Now, I don't ask myself that question, but I say different phrases. And for those of you who were in my last class, I think it was Ruth who put in one of the motivations of Tony Robbins, and it's a 2 to 3 minute thing that says something similar to this. It's not exactly the same. However, it implies of you talking to yourself and just being aware that you should be looking out for good deeds to do throughout the day. And not only that, Benjamin Franklin practiced getting up early in the morning. Now, it doesn't matter what time you get up. You can get up at 10. You can get up at 3 in the afternoon. You get up at 5 in the afternoon, because there are people who are successful at every type of lifestyle. So don't take his word for it. Getting up at 5, this is just an example. So at 5 in the morning, this is his schedule. This is how he became self-made. From 5 to 8 in the morning, he would rise, wash, and address powerful goodness. Now, powerful goodness for him was God. It was God. So contrive the day's business and take the resolution of the day. Whatever he resolved to do that day, he would take that in. Prosecute the present study, meaning he would read, probably, and have breakfast. And then 8 until 12, he would work. Now, the good thing about back then is there's still a lot of places that practice this. They work from 8 to 12, and then they're free from 12 to 2. So Ben Franklin didn't have any time, because from 12 to 2, he would read or overlook his accounts and eat, dine. That's what he would do. And then he would go back to work from 2 to 5, right? And then at 6 to 9, he would put things in their places, supper, music, or diversion, or conversation, examination of the day. So do you necessarily have to be busy throughout the whole day? Not necessarily. As you can tell here, he put in at least 2 hours to self-development, right? At least, if not more, because in the morning, I would say he did some of his work as he got ready by planning for the day. And at the evening, he examined how his day was. So he asked himself one other question. What good have I done today? Does this sound like rocket science, people? Anybody listening? Does this sound like rocket science? You can unmute yourself if anything.
It does not. Sounds very practical, David. This is Gina.
And this is why I've put it here. And if anyone wants a copy of this, I can put it in the group. And that way you can do your own.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that some of you in this chat group belong to one of the programs that I'm a part of, where we've been asked to write down how our hourly schedule is every day. And I have my hourly schedule, and I hope you have lived to your hourly schedule. I don't need to see it every day because I know what it is. However, I review it every so often. So this is a great way to be able to accomplish more out of your day, because one of the things that is most valuable is time. And if you can't measure your time, whether it is that you go on vacation or you're at work and you need to do certain things, how are you going to measure it? So this is very, very powerful means to measure it, your status. Now, I know that Dennis has put very powerful information in the chat, and I'm going to copy it. I don't know if Dennis copied it and put it in the group, but I'm going to put it in our Mastermind book club, because it's very important. And everybody's else going to be, what is this? And I'm like, that's good that you don't know what it is, right? So how else do we get ahead? Thank you, Dennis, for that. Jeez, I don't know how Dennis types so freaking fast. Must be some. So here are the 13 virtues that he used, and the 13 virtues of Benjamin Franklin at age 20. Man, I wish I would have started at 20, but it's okay. So this is very important here. All right. So if you need to zoom in, you can just zoom in and you'll see him much clearer, because I don't blame you if you can't see it. So again, this is just reviewing what I just said. Temperance, eat not to dullness, drink not to elevation, silence, speak not but what may benefit others or yourself. Avoid trifling conversation. Order, let all your things have their place. Let each part of your business have its time. Resolution, resolve to perform what you set out to do. Perform without fail what you resolve. Frugality, make no expense but to do good to others or yourself. That is, waste nothing. In industry, lose no time. Be always employed in something useful. Cut off all unnecessary actions. It's hard to cut off all unnecessary actions, even for me, and I'm certain that many people share that. However, stay the most that you can focused to your task, because soon enough you will become successful. Sincerity, use no hurtful deceit. Think innocently and justly, and if you speak, speak accordingly. Justice, wrong none by doing injuries or omitting the benefits that are your duty. Number 9, moderation. Avoid extremes, forbear resenting injuries so much as you think they deserve. Cleanliness. Tolerate no uncleanliness. Tranquility. Be not disturbed at trifles. In other words, gossip. That's the main disturbance this day and age. The talk of bad news is some type of gossip. Unfortunately, because, well, I mean, it works for me. Since I'm in the stock market and I'm constantly hearing to news, so I've got to be involved in what's happening and the trends. To some extent, it's considered as gossip, but to me, it's a way of investing on the trends of what is being spoken about.
Hey, David.
Yes.
Just on that, it's the story of the fish in the water. The fish is surrounded by salt water, but when you pull the fish out of the water and you go to cook it, you usually add salt, because the fish does not allow the external environment to be absorbed in the personal internal environment. So you can hear the news to understand what's going on. You can hear what's going on in the environment, but you don't have to let it affect you personally and internally. That's the difference of what that message means to me.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Dennis. So that was tranquility. So chastity, rarely use venery, but for health or offspring. So that's one of his. And to a certain extent, I believe it, meaning I have a partner, I have my wife, and I don't see myself going out there and going frivolous. So in that sense, yes, I agree totally with him. Humility, imitate Jesus and Socrates. I believe in this too. I believe that Ben Franklin has chosen these virtues as a way to measure himself. They could be called virtues. They could be called what else, whatever you want to call them. But these are ways that you can check upon yourself, and you don't have to check all 13 on a daily basis as much as you should check on one at least a week and focus on it. Why? Because if you do it for 13 weeks or whatever you decide to check upon, you become a better person. You become a better perfectly, and then he had all the other ones checked off, but one was his specific task for the week. Does anyone have any questions on any of these so far? Any questions?
David,
I
just
think you're
one.
doing a wonderful job, David. Yeah.
Gina, you're doing a wonderful job. Gracias. Thank you, Gina.
Yeah, David, your recap is awesome. One of the things that I missed in what you said was where it all started. Yes, he had a gift and he had a skill, but he
It's coming
also
up.
okay.
Yes, it's coming up right here. See that?
There you
Benjamin Franklin timeline, other achievements.
The
So,
part where he lost everything and was almost penniless and still serving.
well, this is a simple timeline. It's not going to have everything.
No,
Because if
but
I,
just the one. In order for him to solidify him understanding his gift and his mission, it was the time when he was sent to go figure out how to set up a shop, how to set
in
up a printing shop.
yes, in France, by the
So,
governor. Yeah.
right. So he had things in place, but he didn't feel right with the political pressure and the differences with his brother and what was happening where he was. He's like, I needed to find a new space. And he took with him the only two things that he knew: his gift and his skill. And he was begging for food, almost begging for a place to stay, but he knew that his mission and his gift was going to bring him to the place where he needed to be. And he kept moving until he found that environment. So sometimes the environment that we're in, although we may feel that it's survivable, may not be the place where we need to thrive. So sometimes you need to leave where you think you are comfortable to be uncomfortably challenged to get to a new level, which is why this book club is very important. Why you're very important to me is because your challenges, your opportunity to be challenged and step up. By stepping out, we're in the right place at the right time.
Very good, Dennis. Thank you. Thank you. That's a very good observation. And yes, this was mentioned in the book, and it was mentioned that the governor wanted Ben Franklin to go to France to pick up some specific materials, but when he got there, it wasn't ready, and Ben Franklin had to prepare it. So it took him 2 years to prepare. Is that about right, Dennis? Or so?
Yeah,
Yes,
David.
Yes.
and he had to actually sell some of his books in order to fund just him being able to make it through those first couple of days or weeks until he set himself up with his new environment.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you,
Yeah,
Dennis.
David, this is Gina again. I wanted to mention that I think, one of the things, I didn't listen to the entire thing, but some of the things that stuck out to me was that, I guess he gathered his gift in a sense from his love of reading.
Yes.
And,
Correct.
that apparently he loved reading books and they influence him so greatly. And I guess one of the things that were sticking out as well to me that, he grew up in a religious family, so to speak, but when he started to read, you can tell that his mind is kind of like, being expanded. And he is, being able to see what he's doing rather than coming from the perspective of just getting it from his father. And so he goes into, I guess he establishes his own philosophy from being able to expand his horizons in reading.
Correct.
And that,
correct,
I think,
correct.
made him a great person.
That's correct. That is
Mhm.
correct. Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing, Gina.
Mhm.
And so what you just said is right here as well. So Benjamin Franklin was born January 17th, 1706. At the age of 16, he became a vegetarian. But I know at the age of 12, he started working in his brother's printing press in Boston, which is where his family was from. And then around the age of 22, the first publication article of belief and acts of religion. So, but I know that before that, he started writing under Poor Richard almanac or something like that. I know that he was writing under a widowed person's name in his brother's newspaper, and it was very good production. And then at the age of 25, Ben Franklin founded the first circulating library. 25 years old, he
Hey,
founded
David,
the library.
can I stop you for a second?
Yes.
In between the almanac, which was going on, in the environment, he would write inspirational messages. So in effect, he was also one of the first inspirational, motivational messages in a public
Correct.
forum.
Correct. He loved public debate. And I believe that's coming up. One of the things that I missed. So that's why it's a lot on this book, except that the first section is tough. If you're not used to hearing history like I'm not used to it, getting a timeline is the next best thing. So here it is. So at the age of 30, he founded his first volunteer fire department. And what the wild thing is that he got these group of people together to do this fire department. Everybody wanted to have their own fire department in their own areas. It's unbelievable. So we know that our neighbors love to keep up with us. And back then, neighbors wanted to keep up with other neighbors in other towns and so on. So it's not that it's new, it's always existed. People want to keep up with other people. So if you're wearing, or if you have a nice car, chances are that your neighbors will want to get a nice car as well. At the age of 31, he started the first postal service, and then he became the leader of the postal service for a while. I don't know how much further, I think like 10 years after that. At the age of 43, he co-founded, now called the University of Pennsylvania, UPenn. At age 44, he discovered how to maintain streets and waste management. What a wild man. At the age of 45, co-founded Philadelphia Hospital. First public hospital, improved street lights as well. So he didn't invent actual electricity, but he conducted electricity through a key on a kite or something like that. I don't know. I know that he got some electrical shock, but he was okay. Or maybe he became smarter after that. Who knows? Maybe you know. At 46, he discovered electricity. At 46, he discovered electricity exists in storm clouds lighting, founded first mutual insurance company. So this is where the mutual insurance company was formed. I don't know what it was called, but I'm guessing it's Ben Franklin's Mutual Insurance Company. I have no idea. And I have an insurance license, but I don't know much about it. Designed rate chart for postmasters, appointed Postmaster General of North America at the age of 47. At the age of 62, observed extended exposure to lead and causes sickness. So at 62, he had an illness with lead. Now, I don't know the whole story behind his illness, and this is pretty much the first time I hear it because I don't think it's mentioned in this book. At the age of 70, I mean, he had to have recuperated. He's an ambassador of the United States, helped to write Declaration of Independence. That was in 1776. And then he died in 1790. Now, I know he wrote a couple of books, one of them which I have at home, which is Fart Proudly. And he believed and he tried to suggest to people in creating some type of chemical that could be added to food so that when you had to fart, it would come out smelling perfumed. So he passed that on to a few people, and I believe they didn't take him seriously. And so no perfume was ever mentioned. Here's one more timeline
Hilarious.
for all of you. It is, right?
Absolutely.
But can you imagine having a perfume so that if you had to fart, it would just make a nice sea breeze smell or whatever it is that you wanted? Oh my God, that would save time. That would save headaches of time as well for many of us. So here's another timeline. Anyone care to read? I know it's a little small. So again, he was born in 1716, 1718, he becomes an apprentice. That was when he was 12. Begins to write for his brother's newspaper, New England Courant. I don't know if it's pronounced properly. And then he got into some conflict with his brother. So at the age of 17, he goes to Philadelphia. Boom. Organizes the junta. Sets up his own printing business. Publishes the Pennsylvania Gazette, marries Deborah Reed. Oh, another one, not Meredith. I don't remember when he married Meredith. Sets up the library company in 1731. Begins to publish Poor Richard's Almanac. So I was incorrect. It was 1733. Becomes postmaster 1737. So that was at the age of 31. He was the postmaster. Man, who wouldn't want to be a postmaster at 31 years old? Invents the Franklin stove. I believe, Dennis, you had mentioned the stove, right? Or am I wrong?
No, I didn't mention the stove.
Okay. Well, anyhow.
Just that during the stuff with the almanac, he was also interspersing in between the articles for the almanac news. He was putting in
That's right.
inspirational
Yes.
messages.
Yes, he was. He was putting inspirational messages in the almanac, and I have that. I have the almanac. I haven't read it yet. I know I've picked up parts of it, but I haven't read it yet. 1747, retires from active business. 1752, performs famous kite experiment. Receives honorary degree from Harvard and Yale without ever having graduated from colleges. Wild. Publishes Join or Die cartoon. Travels to England to protest the political influence of the Penn family. In other words, London was pissed off that the 13 colonies wanted to become independent of British rule. 1755, returns to Philadelphia. 1775, geez, so he spent a few years away, 18 years away to Philadelphia. Appointed first United States Postmaster General. Helps draft the Declaration of Independence in 1776, which we all know. 1788, finishes his autobiography and dies in 1790 from pleuritic attack in Philadelphia. Anyone know what a pleuritic attack is?
Yeah, like shortness of breath, something involving his lungs, You can't breathe so well.
So, thank you. So, what's going around today has existed all throughout time. There's always been cardiac issues. There's always been heart failure. So, just so you're aware, don't be afraid.
Yeah, but
We're gonna,
pleurisy has to do with the lungs, yeah?
what's that?
This is Ruth. Pleurisy or pleuritic issues have to do with the lungs.
Yes, thank
Okay.
you. Thank you.
Right,
You.
but and that's specific to Ben Franklin. But what David is trying to say is humans have no natural environment on this planet. This is why you can freeze up in the Arctic, or you can go skiing and learn how to lay yourself and protect yourself. There's
Yeah.
natural stuff that's given in the environment that will help us thrive in any environment: cold, heat, sickness, health. So nature will give you a poison that can kill you, but nature will also give you the antidote if you understand nature. And that's where David excels at, which is why I respect what he just said. It's just, you have to understand your interpretation of the current environment. Are you suffering because of an unknown, or are you seeking better solutions from proper sources?
That's correct. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. All of you, I appreciate that. Now, I want to let you know something very simple. Is if there's one thing that you can learn from this book, it's just asking yourself one or two simple questions on a daily basis. Just, what good can I do today? And there's more than one way to ask this question. And then at the end of the day, ask yourself, what good have I done today? This is how you measure yourself. Don't think that you have to have 30 different things on a list and you have to measure yourself that deep. Just pick something simple. Ben Franklin might have lived in a different time, might have had completely different experiences than ours. However, he was independent at the age of 17. At the age of 17, and he didn't go to high school or college, but he was an avid reader, something that most of us didn't have that chance. I didn't have that chance. I was not an avid reader when I was younger. And to this day, I mean, I'm not an avid reader, but I love to read. I'm slow. I read it very slow. So if there's anything that you can pick up, that's one. That's an option there. Ask yourselves two similar questions like that. What good can I do today? Or what's the one thing that I can do today such that everything else will be easier or unnecessary? Which I ask myself that question pretty much daily. And I hope many of you do as well. And it's very, very similar question.
I just put that in the chat, David. What one thing can you be grateful for? What one thing that you did that you're happy for? What one thing that you can improve on for tomorrow? So it's the one thing that you need
Correct.
to give yourself credit for. Yeah.
Yes. And then this timeline here, it's not crazy. It's not difficult. Maybe you need someone to guide you to doing this, but it has made my life easier. And can anyone explain what it's done for them setting up like this schedule? Because I know some of you have this type of setting. Anyone?
David, this is Ruth. It helps you keep, be more disciplined about following up on the things that you plan to do during the day.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And someone who has a business to run and has to have self-development needs to have a plan. If you don't have a plan, how in the world are you going to get accomplished through the day, through the month, through the year, through the next 10 years, 20 years? So in order to have whatever it is that you want to accomplish in life, it's not just about what you're going to be doing in 10 years' time. It's about what are you doing right now that's going to get you closer to the 10 years' time, one day at a time, one task at a time. So if you need this in your life and you need to talk to someone, there are plenty of people in this group who can assist you. but I know some of you probably have not seen this. So you can reach out to me. You can reach out to Dennis or Ruth or Gina. I mean, I'm throwing these names out there. Maybe they're cursing at me, but this is something we've been living with for, well, I've been living with it for many years. However, some of you have come across this maybe longer than I have, maybe less time, but it doesn't matter. It's about implementation. It's about developing the habit that gets you ahead of where you are today. So this book, if you look at it for saying it's complicated reading, then you miss the point. The point is that whatever it is that you want to do, all you have to do is accomplish one thing in life, and everything else, the doors will open up in your favor. Everything else. That's it. All you have to do is accomplish one major task in your life. And when you do that, something's going to happen in this world that's going to form up all its powers so that it opens up every possibility to you. So this is it for the review on Ben Franklin's autobiography.
David, can I ask you something?
Go ahead.
So everybody here, just trying to put on your thinking minds for a minute, and there's two different parts of most of what I was taking away from most of what I had listened to from the book. One is he stayed true to his gift, but it took him to lose his opinion of his environment so that he can find it. Understanding that he had a regimented schedule, but only after he had a chaotic history. So if you're reading it as a history book, then you need a pen, a piece of paper, and sitting it down as a history lesson. If you're looking at as a personal journey, then that's what made the difference for me, which was his personal journey went from fighting with his family, fighting with his brother in the same business, making things happen and then losing it, setting things up in an environment that was hostile, and he had problems with the political system. Then he was being told to go to places, but only for the person who was sending him for personal gain. And then all his exploits after that were all creative stuff. But his gift from the book, from what I've gotten from it, was his original gift was to serve. Now that may have come from his preacher father and the original books that he's read, which was your service will provide you the opportunity if you stay committed to your gift. So number one, learning how you learn. How do you learn? Are you auditory? Are you visual? Is it a combination of both? He learned how to learn. He was obsessed with learning so that he can serve at a higher level. And he was extreme in some things and he was streamlined in others, but he never gave up his passion for taking his gift to different places to serve the masses with his insane desire to learn from as many sources as possible. When he went from his limited library with his father to the guy who had a huge library, he's like, I'll do whatever you tell me to do, just give me access to your books. And that was the stepping stone that led him into being the phenomenal presence, because he absorbed the information of what the people needed, how to serve their needs, how to serve their wants, and how to make people come together by just giving them two things: less fear of the unknown and more intelligence on basic fundamental practices that he lived by, that he shared to help everybody grow. David, you're doing with this book club is exactly that. There's certain fundamentals that are common among what a success idea can be. And he wasn't fully successful on a lot of different things, but he always took action. And he took action because he was insane about learning. So learn how you learn, but also learn how to take action on what you've learned. And I appreciate you for being this phenomenal presence for my mindset and keeping things moving. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you everybody for being here.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Anyone else want to comment on this book?
I'll come in there. What I got from this book, what really stood out to me was that, you know, he was an advocate reader. You know, he wanted knowledge, you know, and not just knowledge just for himself, but knowledge that he can use to help others. And that's one thing that really stood out to me. How he loved to read. He just loved to read. I mean, even when he was a kid, you know, he just loved to read. And yeah, I wish it was something I developed.
Right? Me too.
Desire to read. A
Me too.
desire to read, you know. And that's what I learned from this book. That's one of my biggest takeaways, you know, because a lot of information are in books, and now it's even available online. It's on YouTube, so there's really no excuse for me not to read more. And so that's why I wanted to share.
Thank you. Thank you, Daquan. Daquan, he's one of our newest members. Daquan, where do you live, Daquan?
I live in North Carolina.
North Carolina, that's right. How's the weather there now compared to here?
It's nice. It's about the day was like 69, maybe 60 something degrees, I want to say.
Wow, that's good, good, good. Very good. Well, thank you, Daquan. So, again, people, these books, if you cannot listen to them all week, try and program yourself to do it. Talk to me, send me a message, and I'll give you ideas, techniques to listen to it. I last week said, man, I was going to listen to this 6-hour book, and I did it. I just said, I'm going to do an hour a day. An hour a day. I take Tuesdays off because I review the books and I take the time to review the book. However, I do have the time to listen to a book if I wanted to. So, but the truth is that I listen to other books. I'm heavily into stocks, and I'm reading a book in reference to helping my daughter with her conditions, and she's improving on a day-to-day basis. So, whatever you can do, you can download some of these books. If you need to download them, there are ways to download them. So don't think that you have all the answers. There's always more than one way to do it. If you're in the train for an hour, talk to me. I can tell you what to do. All right? These books are powerful. I want to get each and every one of you on a Thursday to talk about your business if you want. It's not on me, it's on you. So I've asked Gina and Ruth. I asked Ariane, and Ariane had a busy schedule. I don't know if she will be available or not. Charles, you know that you're on, and Reggie as well, if you ever want to come on. Dick Kwan as well. Ty and Dennis, I mean, you can always come on to talk about any of your business. Please let me know, and we can always talk about it. And that way we can help each other out as well. Because this is not about one person. This is about team effort, right? So this is it for tonight. This autobiography was amazing. And just like the first time, it actually brings clarity when you read it a second or a third time. So as listening to it was more powerful because it allowed me to go through it much quicker, and I was able to understand it better. Blessings to everyone. If anyone needs any strategies on healing, please send me a message. We're here, all right? We have a few experts as well who are with us. Take care, have a blessed evening, and thank you all until either Thursday's extended club or until next week, Tuesday. Have a great evening.
Good night.
Good night. Good night. Good night.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
It was a fantastic session.
Thank
Everybody,
you.
good night.
Yes.
Bye.
Thank you,
All right,
David.
everyone.
Good night.